Welcome back to A Slice of News, where I cut you off a slice of news. According to a recent disclosure by the Justice Department, President Trump may have stolen documents so sensitive that only 6 people in the entirety of the U.S. government had access to them, documents that pertain to his personal business interests, and that while flying on his private plane, he showed off a classified map to other passengers. If he was just about any other president, he would be looking at some incredibly serious consequences for these actions. But frustratingly, Donald Trump is likely not going to face any. Many consider him the criminal president for a reason. He is always seemingly able to get away with obviously illegal actions without any sort of repercussions whatsoever. Reportedly, investigators identified evidence that classified materials retained by the president, quote, commingled with documents created after Trump left office and would be pertinent to certain business interests. This assertion was backed up by Department of Justice prosecutors that assessed that those classified documents were pertinent to its business interests and he had a motive for retaining them. Part of how this president gets away with so many crimes that the Supreme Court basically gave him blanket immunity to any criminal actions he takes in official capacities as the president. The problem for him here is going to be how he's going to spin this to be official president business when this was very clearly purely for personal gain and had absolutely nothing to do with his position as president. This is just a guy stealing official classified government documents to help his own personal finances. And some of these things were big deal documents, things that were considered aggravated potential harm to national security type materials. Being in possession of these types of documents while outside his position as president is a serious issue, a serious crime, really. But while the evidence seems to be directly in front of all of us, what actually happens as a result, if anything, remains to be seen. And I would be willing to bet nothing of real consequence will be done because he's basically impervious to any sort of consequence for the criminal actions he took both in and out of office. Having these sensitive documents would be bad enough. It was also revealed that there was numerous examples of scanning and cloud storage by individuals who were not authorized to do so, which obviously greatly increases the possibility for some sort of compromise of that sensitive data. So not only does he have classified and sensitive data that he's not supposed to have, but it's also being mishandled, which puts the data itself at risk. The more we learn about this, the worse it seems to get. The incident where President Trump showed off a supposedly classified map on his private plane was reportedly witnessed by the CEO of Trump's super PAC, Susan Wiles, who currently serves as the White House Chief of Staff. Who else was on that plane and saw that map isn't publicly known, since the Department of Justice redacted all the names of the passengers on the map of the aircraft that they provided. So who exactly had access to the information on that map is currently unknown. But what is known that around that time, President Trump was in close contact with Saudi officials and had made a reference to having, quote, classified records relating to the bombing of Iran in an interview. So while all of those things being connected together can't be definitively established just yet, it does open up the possibility that President Trump shared classified information about bombing of Iran with Saudis, a possibility ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee Jamie Raskin wrote in a letter to Attorney General Pam Bondi. If this map is related to our military posture in the Middle East, and it was in fact shown to any foreign official, Saudi or otherwise, that would amount to an unforgivable betrayal of our men and women in uniform who are currently valiantly fighting in President Trump's disastrous war against Iran. And he's absolutely right. If Trump gave foreign officials access to this information, classified information they were not supposed to have access to or even knowledge of, that would absolutely be a complete betrayal of everyone who we've sent to serve overseas. And that's part of what's the most aggravating part of this. He feels emboldened to be able to do this, steal classified documents, show sensitive information to foreign officials, because he knows he doesn't have to fear repercussions. He's shielded both by the immunity given to him by the Supreme Court for his actions taken in official capacities as president, and by the rest of his party. They don't want him to go down for these heinous acts, so he won't. And he knows it, so he does them with impunity, because he knows that he is protected in every way possible. Donald Trump has used his time as president to enrich himself and for his own personal gain over and over and over. And all he's been rewarded with is encouragement and protection. While it is oftentimes almost reflex to look back at previous presidents, previous administrations for some sort of context to what we're experiencing in the modern day, there really is no precedent for what we are seeing right now. There's never been a president that has been so openly corrupt, so openly criminal, without any fear. I said before that no other president in history would get away with the things that Trump is getting away with, but the reality is that no other president in history would try to do the things that he has done. In that way, our current president is unique. He has found ways to debase the office and taint the name of President of the United States in ways that no other president had ever even considered. But I guess that's what you get when you elect a convicted felon to the highest office in the land. But I think what's both sad and incredibly frustrating is just how normalized his criminality has become. When I read that he had stolen classified documents that helped his business interests, or he had shown foreign officials a classified map on his private plane, I thought, yeah, of course he did. There was absolutely no shock because this is exactly the kind of thing he always does. It's just 100% on brand for our criminal in chief. There was just absolutely no surprise, which I'm sure is exactly how the Judiciary Committee felt when they uncovered the documents that said all of this. It's that complacency that, yep, that's Trump, that's what he does, that emboldens him and allows him to do these things in the first place. Many of his supporters are perfectly fine with it. They think that he's actually being a shrewd leader and using the power of the presidency to do what he has to get results. And those on the other side feel like they are powerless, like they're at a point where there's nothing that can be done, and all they can do is watch helplessly as things get worse and worse, and more criminal actions come out as having been perpetrated by our president. The more and more insulated he's become, the harder it's felt like there's any way to really fight against him, because it seems like no matter what he does, or what is revealed that he has done in the past, he always gets away with it. In part because bodies like the Department of Justice that would be going after a criminal doing the kind of criminal things that he does, work for him. And Pam Bondi and her department would never go against him, even though he is constantly showing obvious criminality. In a way, it's a shame that our founders didn't foresee that at some point in the future, the American people would elect a blatant criminal into power and enshrine some sort of protections into our foundational documents that would protect the American people from what we're experiencing right now, when those around him, the checks and balances that should have held him back, simply have failed. But I suppose in a way, how could they? The founders were very idealistic. The idea that we would elect an evil man into power probably never even entered their minds. And what's even more disheartening is that if somehow they had done so, the modern conservative-led Supreme Court would likely have somehow found some sort of interpretation that made it seem like the founders would actually have been fine with the things he does. While all of this feels like par for the course for our current president, and whether or not anything actionable actually comes to pass as a result of these revelations, I still think it's very valuable to have all this information out there now for people to know what he did. Sadly, it's very likely Trump will never be punished for any of this. And while we can certainly all hold out hope that maybe just somehow punishment comes for these things, reality is likely that they will not in his lifetime. But if nothing else, it allows us to see all of this and say, okay, we can't let this kind of thing happen again. We gave the Oval Office to a multiply convicted felon who abused his power at every opportunity. We saw what the consequence of that was, and we can never allow that to happen again. Yes, his most hardcore supporters are not even listening to that lesson, let alone learning that lesson. They're perfectly fine with him getting away with just about anything and everything, if it means those they don't like are suffering as a result. But many who were previously disengaged are finally opening their eyes and waking up to the reality and seeing the consequence of their disengagement and are not willing to make that mistake a second time. So if there's one bright side to all this, maybe that's it. It's finally gotten to a point that even those who previously never paid attention to politics and didn't really connect with what was going on around them are finally waking up and saying, wow, things are so bad, I have to get involved next time. And that they will follow through with that. And these upcoming midterm elections are absolutely the place for them to do so. If we seemingly cannot punish the corrupt leader that we have now, we can at the very least make sure that we do not elect another. At least not anytime soon. Alright guys, that'll be it for this episode of A Slice of News. I've been your host, Mr. Slice. And until next time, I'm going to cut you off another slice of news. And don't forget to rate and review the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you find it.